there's a lot of responsibility that comes into the storytelling to hopefully get the message across that, like, nothing broken, nothing wounded cannot be healed, cannot be fixed or transformed in some way.
Welcome to Bitch Talk. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm co-host Ange, aka Captain Party.
2026 brings us into our 13th year of podcasting, and we're proud to be here. Thank you to our followers and longtime listeners for voting us Best of the Bay Best Podcast for 3 years in a row, and to SF Film for adding us to the respected list of essential SF winners.
If this is your first time listening, where the hell have you been? But better late than never. We're like if the rap group Salt and Peppa met the show Grace and Frankie and had a baby. And if you don't understand what that means, ask Jeeves. And now, on with the show. Clink!
All right, Bitch Talkers, this is Frameline 50 in San Francisco, one of the longest and largest running LGBTQ film festival in the world. And we are so happy to bring on the director and writer of a film called At the Place of Ghosts. So what we're going to do is have you intro yourself and also the film to our listeners who probably haven't seen it just yet.
Hi, I'm Brad Hannum. I am the writer-director of Skidede Mujuegadi, which is also known as At the Place of Ghosts. It's a strange, weird little film about two estranged siblings that live very different lives and have sort of gone their separate ways due to this traumatic thing that's happened in their past. This weird thing happens, and they need to reunite and sort of join together in order to face this ghost in their past by going into this ancient forest and to the site of this traumatic thing. The entire time that they're journeying through this forest, they meet different spirits, right, from ancestors to their descendants to their own younger selves, trying to get to the heart of the forest, to the heart of the issue, in order to be able to take care of it.
Yeah, there's so many layers to this film. I think it's really beautifully told, first and foremost, just visually stunning.
Thanks.
But I love, it feels real personal. I love hearing the indigenous tongue being spoken throughout. Can you talk about just the impetus of telling this story and where it all stems from?
Yeah, so this is my third feature. I did a real low budget one a long time ago, over a decade ago. And then a couple of years ago, during the pandemic, I did another one that was called Wildhood, that's about Indigenous identity, coming of age, and Two-Spirit coming of age as well. And so we worked closely with the community on points of language and culture. So after that one was done, and we ended up sharing with the community, and it was well received. And it's nice to be able to engage young people, especially from our nation, from in Mi'kma'ki. So working on this project, that was something that it's sort of intrinsic in 99% of what I do is community outreach, language components, cultural components. So there's a lot of discussion that happens with community and language speakers, because I'm not fluent. I know a couple of words, and knowledge holders. So the idea was, to tell a story that's rooted in the culture and rooted in the land and rooted in experience. I think it's something, this story, sort of stepping back broadly, is something that a lot of queer people, regardless of the culture or nation that they're from, can sort of relate to in some way or resonate with in some way. But in particular for Eduiji Jahamijuinuk, for Two-Spirit people, it's something that I think is sort of closer to home, which is sort of difficult because there's a lot of responsibility that comes into the storytelling on multiple levels as well, to not wallow in difficult places or trauma, or but to like work through it and to address it, and to hopefully get the message across that, like, nothing broken, nothing wounded cannot be healed, cannot be fixed or transformed in some way. um,
Mm.
that maybe is a tangential answer, um, but yeah.
I kind of want to dig in a little bit more to that, just because I also have in my notes, and what I thought through watching this film is, I think all of us with families and siblings, we all have secrets and things we're working through, and that we don't necessarily talk about or address or confront, and they do haunt us. And that's this film.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good observation, and is very true. And that's a big part of this. At the center of the film is really sibling dynamic, right? And different facets of what that is.
Hmm.
Sometimes you watch movies and it's sort of like, this person has not is an only child, or like they've never spoken to like a sibling or a cousin in like, or fought or whatever. So there's like there's hopefully, um people can see some of that as well, that dynamic unfolding. But really it's about, that relationship, and how those secrets, those hidden things, they eat away at you, or they can eat away at you. Some things are small and, like, you live with them. That's human experience. But other things are big, and they're sort of big enough to center a movie around.
Hmm.
Totally.
Oh, definitely. You included multiple of those big storylines. I also love the idea of going on this grand journey, searching to fix something within us. That's also within us. So like the connection with nature is something I wanted to get into, and also you're shooting outdoors for most of the film. Can you talk about that experience? Because nature doesn't always follow the schedule.
No, it doesn't. It follows its own schedule. Um, Yeah, there's definitely a parallel. You hear a lot, I think, when people shoot on the land or on location, that the place is a character. It's sort of like, it's a bit maybe cliche to say, but it is true. So I will say it, it is a character. There's a direct parallel between the trauma that these siblings, these, indigenous siblings have gone through, and the trauma of the land that's being subjected to colonization, resource extraction, and the violence of what that is on that level. We say, Wedebexi, like, it's like where I'm from, but it's sort of like where you spring from, the land. What is the land you spring from? So very much centering around the fact that the culture and the language, the worldview comes from place, is rooted here.
Mm,
Our first teachers are plants and animals and seasons and
Mm.
cycles and weather. And so looking at how those things are interrelated in the movie, um, often it's, you hear sometimes that, like, the land it provides us what we need to survive, or has provided ancestors, what they needed to survive. This is true for all people at some point in their cultures and their ancestry in their life. Um, some of it's been forgotten, but some of it's very close to the surface still. And what if you took that and sort of used it in a meta way, in the form of storytelling, right? So the forest, is full of plants, their food, their medicine, their things to avoid. Um, but in this instance, it's, what if the forest is bringing them what they need, these two siblings, which
mm,
is to speak with this ancestor, to meet this person. Don't go that way. There's wolves there, and they don't want you to go that way. You'll miss your lesson if you go that way.
Mm.
So sort of like using that as like the to guide the flow of the story. Um, but then when you get out there and you're shooting outside, it's a different beast, and there's a lot of challenges, to have like such a big crew. There's challenges on two levels. One is just like the logistics of it is difficult. So many people getting them in and out. Where do people go to the bathroom? How do you
Yeah.
respect the land that you're on and make sure, you're not having a giant negative impact, nothing that the land can't spring back from. And then the other, difficult aspect is what's going to happen today? Is it going to rain? Is it going to be like sweltering hot? A couple times it was really hot. Sometimes it was windy. Sometimes it was so muddy or there's so many bugs. Right. And like the actors get it the worst because they are usually in costume. Sometimes it's like heavy clothes and it's already hot and it's such a physical movie too, right? They're doing a lot of physical things and physical and very emotional at the same time. So it's sort of like we were pretty fortunate in shooting in that, like, we couldn't go to a diner, couldn't go to a backup location. But more or less the weather and land cooperated, or it gave us sort of what we required or what we could use. But it's a roll of the dice.
Speaking of actors, can you talk about the siblings and the casting and just speaking in Indigenous tongue?
Yeah. So our leads, Blake and Forrest, they're like great sibling energy in
Yeah.
the movie. And I think their approach to things is very different, which I admire, and I think it really added things to the performance, just how each of them as performers approaches a script or a scene. And finding like what that dynamic is, and sometimes as a director, I'd be like, oh, they're sort of getting on too well, so take one aside and say, poke a little bit and stir things up slightly, but they're quite genial and good spirited people, and very good to work with, and had a lot of cool ideas that they brought as well to the scenes. And I think that's sort of what really sets it apart to me, in that dynamic. The challenge of speaking the language is something, we were a little bit more prepared on this
Mm.
from the last film. It's very difficult coming on, I think, generally for most people, um, to speak a language that's not their first language or that's not sort of like related to a language they speak. So we had, people that translated, and then got double checked, and we were checking all the way up until like ADR and editing and
Wow.
adjusting things because the performances would adjust with editing a little bit and be like, oh, here's like, this is a stellar way to like, have the scene unfold slightly different than how it was performed or written. And then, our executive producer, John Arcelaboy, who's a fluent speaker, and one of our actors in the movie, Bernie Francis, who knows somewhat like everything about language, is like the guy. Like they would be talking about what better ways to say things, or different ways to say things, and then in ADR we're like, well, hopefully this lines up, with the way their mouths are moving, and it did like 99% of the time. So that was quite lucky. But on set, before going on set, and throughout the whole process, John was there on language days. And so there would be a lot of rehearsing, and he'd be like listening, and it would be sort of like, great, we cut, and it's like the performance was good, the, lighting was great, the sound is okay. And then it's like the language, how is language? And it's like the language could be better. Okay, we do it again.
Mm.
Until it's like, great, we're all reasonably happy with what we can get in the time that's left.
Yeah.
And then sort of like rolling forward. And they did pick up like the cadence and the rhythm of the language, because it's sort of like, it's not, Indigenous languages are quite different from,
Hmm.
I think, Romantic languages.
I think it
Oh,
is beautiful and
It is so
romantic.
beautiful.
I know.
That's what I was just going to say. Thank you for sharing the culture and the language with us
Yep.
because it was very beautiful. And that even that young girl, what a
Mm.
great job
yeah.
she did to her cute little face on screen. I loved it.
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
performance all around. And yeah, so thank you for sharing that culture and language with us.
Yeah, very happy to be doing that.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but we do end every segment with something we call This Bitch. And this is a chance for our guests to either shine a light on someone that's bringing you joy or throw shade at someone or something that's pissing you off. So, Brett, who is your This Bitch of the moment?
Mm. I try to focus on what's bringing me joy lately because there's too many other things that are in the opposite
Yes.
direction.
Correct.
And
Yes.
it's again not so much a person, so much of a place. I guess you could say it's a person, but it's just sort of being out in the woods in nature. Um, I don't like shoes or socks. So I spend a lot of time in my bare feet, just walking outside. And it's not like, I'm not saying, oh, you should go hike, into the heart of the middle of nowhere and pretend you're like gonna make fire out of nothing. But even just sort of like walking in the park, taking your shoes off, getting your feet in the grass, touching the earth, putting them in water. If you could find a little stream full of tiny little minnows that will nibble your toes,
Mm.
that's always
Mm.
fun. That's sort of like the rural spa treatment. Um, but yeah, sort of like finding what that relationship is for you. We all have different, I think, capacities for it. For me, it's quite high. Other people are like, I like a good view from my 20-story apartment. And if that view is what brings you joy, seeing, the land like that, the horizon, the ocean, the forest, that's something I would say, yeah, go do that. Yeah, right after listening to this, go take a peek.
Mm. Perfect
Oh,
answer. Beautiful.
this bitch is nature.
Yeah.
Yes.
The original bitch,
Yeah,
some
the
might say.
original.
The original bitch, yeah.
Oh, Brett, it's been so nice to speak with you.
Yeah.
Good luck at Frameline. The movie is at the Place of Ghosts. Everyone go see it at Frameline 50.
Yeah, so the film is playing at Frameline on June 20th at the Roxy. And it would be great to see everyone there.
That's one of our favorite venues in the city, though. So let's go.
Fantastic.
Congratulations, Brett. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Very good to speak with you. Always a pleasure. And thank you.
Welcome to Frameline 50. We are here celebrating a very fun narrative film called Black Burns Fast. We're going to speak with the director, Sandulela Asanda. Welcome to Pitch Talk.
Thank you for having me, guys. I'm excited.
Okay, so our audience has not seen the film yet, so can you introduce it?
Okay, without giving spoilers,
Without spoilers, yes.
it is a fun queer coming of age story. It's set in a high school in South Africa, and we're following, the love lives of these black girls, this group of black girls. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you got it. Log line screen.
My producer's cringing in the background.
No, every director hates this that we've had on, so don't
Yeah.
it. It's their least favorite thing to do. I read that this is your first feature, and you're writing about a lot of big subjects. You're writing about queerness. You're writing about coming out, mom and daughter relationships, friendships, all these really big things. Also, a little bit of apartheid jabs. Love it. And but you balance it so well and with humor. Can you talk about that process?
So I always wanted a film, I always wanted it to be like comedic, kind of lighthearted, because a lot of queer narratives, especially in Africa, are really scary and like dark. So I wanted to like counter that and kind of give myself the type of film that I would have watched at that age. I was really into like the early and like mid 2000s, like teen rom-com phase. But the only thing that sucked about them was that like I could never see myself in it because yeah, I was just like someone who looked like me was never in the fore of that. So I really wanted to do that. And then in terms of like balancing the tone, that very specific experience is very much like the high school experience that I had. And I found, especially when speaking to South Africans, like to each other about like microaggressions, macroaggressions, and all of these things, the best way to do it is to kind of be either subtle or do it through a comedic way. And I wanted this film to be as accessible as possible as well. And then just like having that kind of like stuck up on my wall, like reminding myself, okay, this needs to be funny, but we also need to make our point. We need to balance. And I have an amazing producer who also just like knows me and how I think, and also kind of like helped guide me to make sure that I stayed in the lane that I wanted to be in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is completely fun through and through. But you're able to write modern day teenagers without being cheesy, and you capture the complicated nature of girl friendships.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was kind of like the easy part. Just like I just thought about like how do teenagers speak? And my sister is like 6 years younger than me, and was very big on like making sure that like the people sounded like normal people. It's also a bit of a pet peeve of mine when I watch like teen films and they're not like speaking like normal people would speak. And I think it's just about like not trying to like go with like the buzzwords because they age so badly, but also just reminding like reminding yourself like, okay, it's more kind of about like the rhythm that they speak in, and also how they get to like certain points of being logical and like reasoning. I think also like the way you do that when you're that age versus like when you're like 30 are quite different. So those are always things that I kind of just try to keep in mind as much as possible. I think it also just helps also like knowing your character. Like for me, it's really important for me to be able to like hear the character when I'm writing their dialogue, because it makes them that much more real. And I think it's easier to reflect who they are.
When you were casting the film, and especially well, I would say maybe three leads, but um, how did you talk to them about the script and some of the scenes that, I don't want to give spoilers either, but
Yeah.
are intimate. So how did that conversation go, and was it throughout the filming of this movie?
Yeah, it was always throughout. Funnily enough, when we sent out the audition material, I asked them to also just like talk about like for 2 minutes about their high school experience. And I tried not to be like very specific about what they experienced, but I think they got a sense from like the character descriptions and the short log line what the film would sort of be about. And then just hearing them speak about how they connected to the characters themselves also was something that I kind of used to help shape how they also built the character. So in rehearsals, it was nice to use in rehearsals to be like, okay, well, think about this thing that you told me when you were in high school, kind of access that place to, really portray the character. In terms of the intimate stuff, I was very clear about that from the get-go, that it was happening, and also to make sure that the girls were really comfortable. We did have an intimacy coordinator, but also my assistant, who's also my best friend, also is an intimacy coordinator. And so she was with me on set every day. And when I couldn't attend to the actresses like personally, she would be able to go do it and kind of, I don't want to call her a handler because she wasn't handling them, but she was just like a person that they could speak to about things. And they knew that they could trust. They were also able to just come talk to me if they wanted to. But they really just like, the minute they got the scripts and we started rehearsing, they really just like took the characters as their own and had so much fun with it. And I think also what I do try and do is like, even when I write characters, I do try give the actors kind of like their own space to do what they want and to like develop things. So even like the first time that we met, I told them to like write a letter to their 17-year-old selves, even just to like get them back in that space like mentally. And they told me like they really loved that because during the shoot, they just would go back to the letter and read it.
Oh, we should do that.
Yes. Also, we should do that. Have you done that?
I did. I did when I actually started the project. I did. Like I looked for my yearbook. I got that out. I looked at like pictures of myself from that
Oh, boy.
age. I made playlists with the music from when I was in high
Yes.
school.
I still
Like,
listen
yeah.
to I don't know what that says about me. But yeah, oh, I love that. That's such a good idea. Food for thought, Erin. I also want an intimacy coordinator for my regular life. Is that
Yes.
possible? Anyways,
Are they also just therapists? It feels like they're a
I
little
guess so,
therapists.
but
Low key,
but I
yeah.
want them there like right before the big moments. You know what I mean? If I need to have a big conversation or I want the coordinator to come in and pep talk me, you know? Anyways, I love that you say this is a high school coming of age story that you never saw reflected from your life. But I do feel very connected to this story as well. I was reminiscing a lot watching this film in a good way and in a tough cringe way, which is totally high school. But as you're taking this film internationally, what kind of reaction are you getting from different audiences?
It's been really great, actually, like across the board. A lot of people, again, who are also like seeing themselves, even though like they're not necessarily the same as the people on screen. A lot of people like also who went to like all girls schools or went to private schools or who have family and friends from that environment. But also, I think one like really significant experience that I can remember is in Berlin when we had our premiere there. There was like this 14, 15-year-old girl who had come, and she had been told by her best friend to come watch the film the next day. And she says she's so glad that she watched this film because it's the first ever like queer film that she's ever watched in her life. And the reason why that was is because like she was just so scared of like the other stuff that she'd heard about before, but now she can say, okay, this was like my opening into the world of queer cinema, and that gave me good feels and like the ability to like keep moving forward into it and have that representation, which I'm really glad for. Like it kind of made me cry. It made me cry actually, because I think that is really important. And I think that's also kind of like a source of so much of the joy of the film, because for me, I just felt like when I came into my own queerness, like my life just became better and happier. And I feel like I was just so much more well adjusted. Like I remember being in primary school and high school, just like so constantly aware that like I was different. And yes, I was aware of the racial aspects and the gender aspects, but like even outside of that stuff, just like knowing like, no, I'm not like other people. And then getting older and realizing actually this is what that is, really helped me just like come into myself a lot more.
I might be asking a most obvious question, so forgive me, but can you talk about the title?
Yeah. So it made me think about like, I didn't do science, so I hope I'm like explaining this properly, but like that principle where like things that are darker colors heat up faster than other colors. And it made me kind of think about that experience of being a Black girl in these like majority white schools where you feel like the attention is constantly on you, and you also kind of feel like you have to mature faster because everyone has eyes on you. And if you do something, like every other Black person is like complicit as well, like painted with the same brush. So it kind of made me, and that was also something that I wanted to push up against this idea that like just because you're like 18, 17 as a Black girl, you can't be still a child and innocent, or that these things don't even affect you. Like pointing out the fact that like the way you view me as people, but also as an institution, is pushing me to a direction, is aging me, is making me very self-conscious about who I am, and that's not fair. So yeah, that's why I chose the title.
Yeah, I love it.
That's beautiful. That was a perfect question. Thank you for asking that. Yeah, I love that explanation.
I was like, did I miss something? Is it a title of a book? Like, so thank you. Thank you.
No, I love your explanation of it too. I think your producer's happy with you again. So well done, Sandilela. Okay. Unfortunately, we do have to wrap, but before we go, we end each interview with something we call This Bitch. So this is a chance for our guests to shine a light on something that's bringing you joy, or you can throw shade at something that's pissing you off. So what is your This Bitch of the moment?
Ooh. This bitch Ghana, who have just had the summit about family values and are trying to criminalize homosexuality, criminalize homosexual people and our existence, forgetting that they themselves are part of a legacy of kind of like the earliest iterations or like examples of homosexuality in the world. One of their biggest kings had a whole harem full of men. Women practice like female husbandry there. But now all of a sudden that, these like white Republicans are like funding your whole life, you decide that you want to chop and change and decide what you can pick from culture and history of your country and what you can't. So yeah, those bitches need to, okay, how I'll get in trouble if I But they need to get a handle of themselves, because what they don't realize is that, like, fine, they're going to come for queer people first, but they will be next. Yeah.
Damn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's hard to keep up with everything that's going on around the world, right? Because
There's too much going on.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Back to some joy. We hope our audience that's listening right now will come out. You have 2 opportunities to watch this film on June 19th at the New Parkway, which tickets are selling fast for that one. So get on it. Or June 26th at the Roxy. So 2 opportunities to support some international independent art. Sandulela, this has been so fun. Thank you for this film. Again, it's called Black Burns Fast, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me and for your wonderful questions. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on today's show. You can find more information about this episode in our show notes.
If you're missing us, you can visit us at bitchtalkpodcast.com to sign up for our newsletter and buy us a cup of coffee.
Did you know we're also on the radio? You can find us at bff.fm.
And lastly, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All the cool bitches are doing it.